Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Yeah, we will try to focus on what Prabhupada is speaking here. So here, Yudhishthira Maharaj is addressing Vidura. My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka in that holy place. Are our friends and well-wishers, the descendant of Yadus who are always wrapped in service of Lord Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abode? And then Prabhupada writes, the particular word Krishna Devata, that is, those who are always wrapped in the service of Lord Krishna, is significant. The Yadavas and Pandavas, who were always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his different transcendental activities, were all pure devotees of the Lord, like Vidura. Vidura left home in order to devote himself completely to the service of the Lord. The Pandavas and Yadus were always wrapped in thoughts of Lord Krishna. Thus, there is no difference in their pure devotional qualities, either remaining at home or leaving home. The real qualification of a pure devotee is to become wrapped in the thought of Krishna favorably, that is, knowing well that Lord Krishna is absolute personality of Godhead. Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishpala, and other demons like them were also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna, but they were absorbed in a different way, namely unfavorably or thinking him to be a powerful man only. Therefore, demons like Kamsa and Shishpala are not on the same level of pure devotees like Vidura, Pandavas, and the Yadavas. Maharaj Yudhishthir was also always wrapped in the thought of Lord Krishna and his associates as Dwara, at Dwaraka. Otherwise, he would not have asked first of all about them from Vidura. Maharaj Yudhishthir was therefore on the same level of devotion as Vidura, although engaged in the state affairs of the kingdom of the world. This is a very important chapter because the mentality of Dhritarashtra is there in all living entities. That's why it is very important for us to understand this chapter. And this chapter, every chapter has a purpose. That's the reason Sutta Goswami is giving us these chapters. He wants us to learn certain things and overcome that tendencies in us. So, so like there are very nice philosophical points that were clarified with Kunti Maharani's prayers. Why living entity suffers, why there are problems in this material world, why Krishna arranges problems, and how to accept the problems in one's life. Not only that, there are many other position of the Lord and living entities, their relationship, why pure devotees suffer. All these things very nicely are answered by Kunti Maharani. And when it comes to Bhishmadev prayers, it is taught how a person should leave the material world. and what should be the state of consciousness he has to give up his material body. That's what is understood from Bhishma there. And then we have Parikshit Maharaj's birth. Of course, before that also we have very important things to learn in different chapters. And Parikshit Maharaj's birth. Here we see that here we are seeing about Dhritarashtra. Now this is actually more relevant to many because this Dhritarashtra is there in everyone's. Now here it is said that has been questioned by Maharaj Vishnu. Mahatma Vidra gradually described everything he had personally experienced except news of the annihilation of the Edo dynasty. Compassionate Mahatma Vidra could not stand to see the Pandavas' justice at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose this unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come on those on their own accord. This is actually what happens. There is problem, and everybody will come to know anyway the news. So Prabhupada writes, according to Niti Shastra, civil laws, one should not speak an unpalatable truth to cause distress to others. Distress come upon us in its own way by the laws of nature. So one should not aggravate it by propaganda. For a compassionate soul like Vidra, especially in his dealings with the beloved Pandavas, it was almost impossible to disclose an unpalatable piece of news like the annihilation of Edo dynasty. Therefore, he purposefully refrained from it. So he knows that this news will anyway come to them. Why he want to be a means of giving that news? And he had a certain mission to accomplish, and that's the reason he's not trying to. That will also interfere in his mission if he does this, and then whole environment will be in a very tragic situation, and he will not be able to do what he want to do. So he has certain instructions to give, and he thought, okay, let me complete the instructions, and then slowly the news will come. It will come in the next chapter. Pandavas. And then thus Mahatma Vidra being treated just like a godly person by his kingsmen, remained there for a certain period just to rectify the mentality of his elder brother, and thereby he also brought happiness to all others. So this was the purpose, because when they were feeling separation from Vidra and when they got his association again, they all became very satisfied and happy. Now, say this is we'll discuss what Prabhupada is telling. Saintly persons like Vidra must be treated as well as the denizens from heaven. In those days, denizens of heaven, heavenly planets used to visit homes like that of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and sometimes persons like Arjuna and others used to visit higher planets. Narada is a spaceman who can travel unrestrictedly not only within the material world universe but also in the spiritual universe. Even Narada used to visit the palace of Maharaj Yudhishthir, and what to speak of other celestial demigods. It is only the spiritual culture of people concerned that makes interplanetary travel possible. Even in the present body, Maharaj Yudhishthir therefore accepted Vidra in the manner of resurrection offered to the demigods. So this is a very important point Prabhupada is trying to tell. It is only the spiritual culture of people that actually uh, that will uh, help us to get access to higher truths. So what happens is people concerned that makes interplanet travel possible. Somebody previously it was there, that's why we hear so many demigods coming, and this in the Purana, so many stories are like that. And now it is not happening because the spiritual culture is not there, and demigods don't like to come now. Because even if they come, also nobody will respect. That's actually what happens. In Ganpati festivals, they invite Ganpati, they keep on the stage, and they put the DJ, and people are dancing all sorts of songs. And I don't know what Ganpati will be feeling. He thought if we really come, what will happen? Just by my name, they are doing so much nonsense here. Some parts of the country they do in Madhya Pradesh and some parts of Maharashtra, they are very properly doing, but many cities it's no more like that. Especially in Hyderabad, it's all bogus only. 101% bogus worship they do. And now such a insult for the Lord. So how can demigods come? There is nothing spiritual culture. It's all show off. That's why there is no possibility that demigods will come to receive what they are giving. Mahatma Vidra, and of course, this point of respect is the most important thing. This is the whole chapter is about that. How uh, how we can grow. It is not that we just because we are devotees now and no finish nothing to do with any of the things. All these things are no. This is given in Bhagavatam only. If it is some other karmic literature, then we need not so much bother about it. But these principles are given in Bhagavatam. That means it is very essential for us. And Prabhupada is also writing. What is most important is uh, respect is the what is how a saintly person is treated, how much respect. He should be treated almost as a demigod only. Yudhishthira therefore received Rudra in the manner of reception offered to the demigods. Very, very respectfully was received. Mahatma Vidra had already adopted the renounced order of Lord, therefore he did not return to his parental palace to enjoy some material comforts. He accepted out of his own mercy what was offered to him by Maharaj Yudhishthira, but the purpose of his living in the palace was to deliver his elder brother. So he had a mission to accomplish to deliver Dhritarashtra, who was too much materially attached. Dhritarashtra lost all his state and descendants in the fight with Maharaj Yudhishthir, and still, due to his sense of helplessness, he did not feel ashamed to accept the charity and hospitality of Maharaj Yudhishthir. On the part of Maharaj Yudhishthir, it was uh, quite in order to maintain his uncle in a befitting manner, but accepting of such magnanimous hospitality, but Dhritarashtra was not at all desirable. He accepted because he thought that there was no alternative. Vidra particularly came to enlighten Dhritarashtra and to give him a lift to the higher state of spiritual cognition. It is a duty of the enlightened souls to deliver the fallen ones, and Vidra came for that reason. But for talks of spiritual enlightenment are so refreshing that while instructing Dhritarashtra, Vidra attracted the attention of all the members of the family, and all of them took pleasure in hearing him patiently. This is the way of spiritual realization. The message should be heard attentively, and if spoken by realized soul, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned souls, and by the conditioning, by continuous hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. So this is what we are all doing. Every day morning we are sitting and hearing. The message should be heard attentively, and if spoken by a realized soul, we are hearing directly from Prabhupada, it will act on the dormant heart of the conditioned soul, and by continuously hearing, one can attain the perfect stage of self-realization. Actually, Dhritarashtra is not an ordinary soul. He's actually very a great personality. He's a very because he's son of Vyasdev only. He had some attachment, but otherwise he was also having some very good qualities. That's the reason he was able to attain that state, and he was very respectfully. He was able to leave his home. This is very important. Of course, in this we can see he had that spiritual culture, the Rashtra also. He knows that Krishna is supreme personality of God, but his attachment was so strong he could not give it up. That is the problem with Rashtra. Otherwise, this is the what Dhritarashtra was. Uh, it is not. He is son of Vyasdev. He knows actually the scriptures, and he has read and studied the scriptures also. Of course, he could not read, but he heard the scriptures blind. But he was a very great person. As when Duryodhana was born, he was howling like a donkey. Vyasdev comes and says, throw in the forest. But Dhritarashtra immediately got attached. He is my son. And from there, all the problems started for him. And here, uh, because of association of Vidra, he could again come to his original state. And that is the reason we'll see about how further we'll discuss about the Drashtra. As long as Vidra played the part of Shudra being caused by Mandukumni, Aryaman officiated at the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts. Vidra, born of the womb of a Shudra woman, was forbidden even to be a party of royal hermitage along with his brothers Drashtra and Pandu. Then how could he occupy the post of a preacher to instruct such learned kings and Kshatriyas as Drashtra and Maharajas? First answer is that even though it is accepted that he was Shudra by birth because he renounced the world for spiritual enlightenment by such a authority as Rishi Maitreya and was thoroughly educated by him in the transcendental knowledge, he was quite competent to occupy the post of an Acharya or spiritual preceptor. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, anyone who is conversant in the transcendental knowledge or the science of Godhead, be he a Brahmana or a Shudra, a householder or a sannyasi, is eligible to become a spiritual master, even in the ordinary moral codes, as stated by Chanakya Pandit, the great politician and moralist. There is no harm in taking lessons from a person who may be by birth less than a Shudra. This is one part of the answer. Another is that Vidra was not actually a Shudra. He was to play the part of so-called Shudra for 100 years, being cursed by Mandukya. He was the incarnation of Yamaraj, one of the 12 Mahajans on the level with such exalted personality as Brahma, Narada, Shiva, Kapila, Shishma, Prahlada, etc. Because Yamaraj is a Mahajan, it is his duty to preach the cult of devotion to the people of the world, as Narada, Brahma, and other Mahajans do. But Yamaraj is always busy in his plutonic kingdom punishing the doers of sinful acts. Yamaraj is deputed by the Lord to a particular planet, some hundreds of thousands of miles away from the planet of Earth, to take away the corrupt souls after death and convict them in accordance with their respective sinful activities. Thus, Yamaraj had very little time to take leave from his responsible office for punishing wrongdoers. There are more wrongdoers than righteous people. Therefore, Yamaraj has to do more work than other demigods who are also authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. But he wanted to preach the glories of Lord, and therefore, by the will of Lord, he was cursed by Mandukmani to come into the world in the incarnation of Vidra and work very hard as a great devotee. Such a devotee is neither Shudra nor a Brahmana. He is transcendental to such divisions of mundane society. Just as the personality of God assumes his incarnations as a hog, but is neither a hog nor a Brahman. He is above all mundane creatures. The Lord and his different authorized devotees sometimes have to play the role of many lower creatures to climb the conditioned souls, but both the Lord and his pure devotees are always in the transcendental position. When Amaraj thus incarnated himself as Vidura, his post was officiated by Ariman, one of the many sons of Kashyapa and Aditya. The Adityas are sons of Aditya. And there are 12 Adityas. Ariman is one of the 12 Adityas, and therefore it was quite possible for him to take charge of the office of Emerald during this 100 years absence in form of Shudra. The conclusion is that Vidra was never a Shudra but was a greater than the pure type of a Brahmana. This is the point that Vidra is not a Shudra uh, who is born from Vasudeva, but he is directly Emerald. And another important point is he wanted to preach. He wanted the opportunity to preach that was given to him. And only somebody very great personality is given that post, because if somebody is already very sinful, if he is given, is very cruel, if he is given the post of say Yamaraj, then he will be more violent on all the living entities. So that is the reason the post of such a exalted post is given to very kind-hearted person. So even though he is punishing, he feels compassionate for them. And anyway, now the continuing of the story, what happens is, having won his kingdom and observed the birth of his grandson, competent to continue the noble tradition in his family, Maharaj Yudhishthira regained peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brother, who are all expert administrated to the common people. Now, here, because Parikshit Maharaj has to become the king, so all these predecessors have to live. So one by one. Now Bhishma left, now Dhritarashtra will live. And then after that Pandavas, Krishna and Pandavas going to live. So that Parikshit Maharaj will enter into it. We'll see how both Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna were unhappy from the beginning of battle of Kurukshetra, but even though they are unwilling to kill their own men in the fight, it has to be done as a matter of duty, for it was planned by the supreme will of Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. After the battle, Maharaj Yudhishthira was unhappy over such mass killing of human beings and animals. Practically, there was none to continue the Kuru dynasty after the Pandavas. The only remaining hope was the child in the womb of his daughter-in-law Uttara, and he was also attacked by Ashwatthama. But by the grace of the Lord, the child was saved. So after the settlement of all disputing conditions and resettlement of the peaceful order of the state, and after seeing the surviving child Parikshit well satisfied, Maharaj Yudhishthira felt some relief as a human being, although he had very little attachment for material happiness, which is always illusory and temporary. So nice point, Rob. That he felt relief, but he had no attachment for any of this stuff. And that is a very interesting thing. We also try to settle some things in this material world, and after settling, people get a job, and then they get wife, then they have children, and then they want to settle everything. They want their children to grow, they want their children to get jobs, and then they want their children to get married and settle. And once their children settle, then they want to get retired, and then they feel some relief. But there is no relief because there is another problem. Only relief comes is when you understand that you have the attachment to material happiness and understand it's always illusory and temporary. So, evam griheshu saktanam pramattanam tadihaya atya kamat avajnata kala paramadustara. Insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are insanely attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thoughts. This is the reality. So, evam griheshu sakta. So, if we are attached, then there is a problem. And Prabhupada writes very nice purport. He says, how a person, I am now happy. I have everything in order. My bank balance is quite enough. I can now give my children enough estate. I am now successful. The poor beggar, sannyasi, depends on God, but they come to beg from me. Therefore, I am more than the supreme God. There are some of these thoughts which engross the insanely attached householder who is blinded by the passing of eternal time. Our duration of life is measured, and no one is able to enhance it even by a second against the scheduled time ordained by the Supreme. Such valuable time, especially for the human being, should be continuously spent, because even a second passed away imperceptibly cannot be replaced, even in exchange for thousands of gold coins amassed by hard labor. Every second of life is meant for making an ultimate solutions to the problems of life, that is, repetition of birth and death and revolving in the cycle of 84 lakhs different species of life. The material body, which is subjected to birth and death, disease and old age, is the cause of all suffering of the living beings. Otherwise, the living being is eternal. He is never born, nor does he ever die. Foolish persons forget this problem. They do not know at all how to solve the problems of life, but become engrossed in temporary family affairs, not knowing that eternal time is passing away imperceptibly and that their measured duration of life is diminishing every second without any solutions by the big problem to the big problems, namely repetition of birth and death, disease and old age. This is called illusion. They don't try to solve these problems. They're so busy with all the things in their life, not knowing that there should be some time spent to solve the main problems also. Their only problem is most of the people who are in middle class, their problem is economic problem only. How to make money, how to increase money, how to pay the loans, how to pay the bills, and how to pay the fees of the school, and all these things. The whole time goes in thinking about bills, monies, and if they get little more money, then they want to enjoy it. Otherwise, then there is medical bills. This is actually what goes with the people. Then by the time the children are growing, then they are worried about the bills and some settlements, and then there is marriage, and then there is purchase of some property, so that in future it is helpful. Purchase this property, that property, and so much time. If you purchase, then you have to pay the loans for the bank, and so much of this time. You call them, and their discussions and talks will be on these matters only. Very responsibly they will do. But problem is they don't work on. But what about the main problems? That solutions. It's very unfortunate that they don't work on in that direction, even a little bit. Not knowing that one day they will die, and they know that they are going to die, some of them, but they don't know what to do also with that. That is another situation. And many of their family member died. They have seen their grandfather is dying, their father is dying, and they are going to die. And but Pashanapina Pashati, they see but they cannot see. But such illusion cannot work on one who is awakened in devotional service of the Lord. Yudhishthir Maharaj and his brothers, the Pandavas, were all engaged in service of Lord Sri Krishna, and they had very little attraction for the illusory happiness of this material world. As we have discussed previously, Maharaj Yudhishthira was fixed in the service of Lord Mukunda, the Lord who can award salvation. Therefore, he had no attraction even for such comfortable life as are available in the kingdom of heaven, because even the happiness obtained in the best in the obtained in the planet Brahmaloka is also temporary and illusory. Why it is illusory? Because it is given to the body and senses and mind. This happiness is for body, senses, and mind. This happiness is not to the soul. That's why it is temporary. It is illusory. This because the soul identifies itself with body, senses, and mind, and this pleasure is given to the body, senses, and mind. The soul is observing all these things, identifying with it, and when the senses are satisfied, the mind is satisfied, soul is thinking, I am happy. That's why it is illusory. It's foreign to us. But the soul as such does not need, because it is like watching a movie, and person is the something is happening in the movie, hero is enjoying or heroine is enjoying or somebody is enjoying, this person is identifying with the characters and he is also experiencing that pleasure, even though he is not doing himself personally, but he is similarly here, because these things are given to us. The soul is given, this body is given, senses are given, mind is given, and then the pleasure is given to this. The soul is thinking, yes, I am getting it. But because the living entity, eternal, he can be happy only in the eternal abode of kingdom of Godhead, Paravyama, from which no one can return to this region of repeated birth and death, disease and old age. Therefore, any comfort of life or any material happiness which does not warrant an eternal life is but illusion for the eternal living beings. One who factually understands this is learned, and such a learned person can sacrifice any amount of material happiness to achieve the desired goal known as Brahma Sukha or absolute happiness. Real transcendentalists are hungry for this happiness, and as a hungry man cannot be made happy by all comforts of life minus foodstuffs. So the man hungry for eternal absolute happiness cannot be satisfied by any amount of material happiness. Therefore, the instructions described in this verse cannot be applied to Maharaj Yudhishthira or his brothers and mother. It is meant for persons like Dhritarashtra for whom Vidura came especially to impart lessons. So this is a very important shloka to memorize also. Evam griheshu saptanam pramukthanam edikaya atyakamat avajnata kala paramadustaraha. So this insurmountable time overcome those who are insanely attached to family affairs. So because they are very madly attached to the family always. So for them the time is so much acting. Vidurastadapipreta Dhritarashtam Bhashata Rajan Nigra Sigram Pashyedam Bhayamagata. So Vidura is telling Mahatma Vidura knew all this and therefore he addressed Dhritarashtra saying, my dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken me. This is the first instruction is given. What happens is as soon as person becomes older and older, he start becoming fearful. Why? To the degree we are attached, to the degree we are fearful. And to the degree we lack faith on Lord, to the degree we are fearful. That's why Vajohure Manas Srinandanandana Abhay Charanarvindare. When we start taking shelter of Krishna, more and more we become fearless. Cruel death cares for no one. Prabhupada writing very nice purport. Cruel death cares for no one. Be he Dhritarashtra, even Maharaj Yudhishthira. Therefore, spiritual instructions, as was given to old Dhritarashtra, was equally applicable to younger Maharaj Yudhishthira. As a matter of fact, everyone in the royal palace, including the king and his brothers and mother, was raptly attending the lectures. But it was known to Vidura that his instructions were especially meant for Dhritarashtra was too materialistic. The word Rajan is especially addressed to Dhritarashtra significantly. Dhritarashtra was the elder son of his father, and therefore, according to law, he was to be installed on the throne of Hastinapur. But because he was blind from birth, he was disqualified from his rightful claim. But he could not forget the bewilderment of his disappointment was somewhat compensated of the death of Pandu, his younger brother. His younger brother left behind him some minor children, and Dhritarashtra became the natural guardian of them. But at heart, he wanted to become the factual king and hand the kingdom over to his own sons, headed by Duryodhana. With all these imperial ambitions, Dhritarashtra wanted to become a king, and he contrived all sorts of intrigues in consultation with his brother-in-law Shikun. But everything failed by the will of Lord. And at the last stage, even after losing everything, man and money, he wanted to remain a king, being the eldest uncle of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as a matter of duty, maintained Dhritarashtra in royal honor, and Dhritarashtra was happy passing away his numbered days in illusion of being a king or the royal uncle of King Yudhishthira. Vidura, as a saint and as a duty-bound, affectionate younger brother of Dhritarashtra, wanted to awaken Dhritarashtra from slumber of being a false king, driven to disease and old age by the force of powerful time. Vidura therefore sarcastically addressed Dhritarashtra as the king, which he was actually not. Everyone is a servant of eternal time, and therefore no one can be king in the material world. King means the person who can order. The celebrated English king wanted to order time and tide, but the time and tide refused to obey his order. Therefore, uh, one is a false king in the material world, and Dhritarashtra was particularly mentioned of his, particularly reminded of his false position and of the factual, fearful happening which have already approached him at the time. Vidura asked him to get out immediately if he wanted to be saved from the fearful situations which was approaching him fast. He did not ask Maharaj Yudhishthira in that way because he knew that the king like Maharaj Yudhishthira is aware of all the fearful situations of this flimsy world and would take care of him in due course, even though Vidra may not be present at that time. It's a very nice point, Prabhupada is telling that Dhritarashtra needed help because he did not practice properly. But Yudhishthir Maharaj, he was already practicing very nicely. Sadhana was very nice. For him, it was easy. Of course, Yudhishthir Maharaj is a pure devotee. He don't need any sadhana. But as to set example, he was already doing it properly. So for him, it was not a problem. But for Dhritarashtra, he was also having some spiritual practices. Not that he didn't have, but his attachment was very strong. He needed some support to get out of it. And it is applicable for many of the people. They all need, there is so much attachment to this metal world. We all need some support to get out of it. We are not in a position like Maharaj Yudhishthir. Then we'll all need some support of our spiritual master or some senior devotees, Shiksha Gurus, who can pull us out, give proper instructions, cut the exact knot which we are having, which will help us to grow more in our spiritual life. This is actually what is very much needed. Otherwise, people they are caught up. Without any support, there is no possibility of coming out. We need a very powerful person like Vidra. We have Prabhupada, he's helping. Apart from that, we need the present devotees, Vaishnavas, who will help us. We are chanting. We need to chant with the devotees. We need to, especially if you see that when we are chanting, all the anarthas will come out. So many thoughts will come, this, that, this, that. But when we are in the association of devotees and doing kirtan, it is more blissful because that time anarthas cannot come. That is very important for us to do kirtan in the association of devotees, which is always helpful, which will make us more and more come closer to Krishna. Sankirtan. The moment is Sankirtan. The regular kirtans are very helpful for us. And here the conditions are so strong that Dhritarashtra, even though he knows that everything is gone for him, but still the attachment to royal pleasure still continued for him. And in a very humiliating situation, also is not able to give up. Sometimes we see some old people, they their they their desire to enjoy is so strong. And even though everybody is chastising, but they cannot give up their bad habits, or they cannot give up certain eating habits which they have. And everybody, they are in a humiliating situation. Sometimes you see they're suffering from some disease and they are not supposed to eat certain food items, but they helplessly do, and everybody chastises them. And they also know it is wrong, but they cannot stop doing it. Sometimes they are smoking or drinking or eating some unwanted things which are not supposed to be eaten, and everybody is warning them, don't do it, don't do it, but they secretly do or they publicly do. And even sometimes their grandchildren also, they humiliate them. With all their humiliation, they continue, and sometimes they remain in the house in a very humiliating situation, some old people. And now people are not keeping old people, some of them they are happily sending them to old age homes where there is so much humiliation for them, even though they have money, they don't have anybody talk to them and all this situation. And so much fear is there when they die, they have loneliness, there is fear, there is humiliation, there is all these things. Why? Because they are not prepared themselves. Vidra came to help Dhritarashtra to make them out. But for Yudhishthira, it was not needed. Why? He prepared himself. Now, if we are not preparing, then we have to go through this humiliation situation. Now, people are saying, oh, old age homes are increasing. Why old age homes are increasing? Because these old people, they did not prepare themselves. That's why it is increasing. You prepare yourself, then you don't have problem with old age. It is said that you have to leave the house without anybody knowing where you went also. That is very glorious. But they cannot live. They are just, and if they are prepared, now they want to sit in front of TV and now they are watching. Now it is much more complicated. They have their mobile and they are enjoying. And now you are enjoying with your mobile. Now you are enjoying with your remote control in sitting in front of TV and you are trying. But when time comes, when old age comes, you get heavy fear. Why people when they are sick, when they are going to hospital, why people have problem? Two reasons. One is because they are losing so much money, which they kept it for sense gratification. All that money they have to spend on the bills. And another things, their time which they want to give for sense gratification is also wasted. So they are worried about the time they want to do sense gratification in the time, and they want to spend that money for sense gratification. Both are lost. The pain is there because of the sickness. They are getting some pain. The person who is sick, he is getting some pain. But all the other people who are connected to the sick person, they are also having pain. But their pain is loss of money, loss of time. And sick person may have some suffering because of the pain and what he's going through, but he has more suffering because he is also losing money and he's also losing time. People have money and time, they will do happy sense gratification. And that is the only purpose they feel. But when old age comes, when the time comes, it's so humiliating for them, so fearful, but they don't know where to go. And it's always very big people also, they try to use some methods, they perform big yajnas and wanted to increase their lifespans, and they do special pujas when they are becoming old, because they're fearful now. Time is ticking and they don't know where they will go. And one who has enjoyed so much, for them it is more risky, because they are not sure whether they will get the same amount of pleasure further, because you are losing so much, and where you will go you don't know. Because if you have enjoyed so much, 100% sure you are going to get a animal body. That is much more fearful for them. But one who has sincerely practiced, for them it is not just so much. If we have not enjoyed in this material world, living this world will not be a problem. If we have enjoyed sufficiently, then that is a problem. Devotee, not that they don't enjoy, but they enjoy in relation with Krishna. So there is no problem. Why? If I go to next life, I'll do a Krishna will give me whatever is needed, and I am happy. In that way, the fear is not there. But when it comes to non-devotees, when it comes to materialistic people, they for them it becomes very difficult for them to accept, because they lose so much. Some people who have lived very pious life, for them it is easy. They may not be devotees, but for them also it is easy, who have lived a pious life. Because what happens is, person lived a pious life, he he gets a higher destination. They will not be fearful. They know, I lived properly, some rules, I am going to get something higher. They may have some pain of losing their beloved ones, but they're okay relatively. But people who are at least, if not so much sinful life, at least pious life people live, that is also safe. And this is what is given. Like I was talking, some children were asking me questions. uh, Whatever activity we are doing, it's not that the activity now we are doing is going giving the result. The result is already decided based on your previous life good and bad activities. Now if you are doing good in this life, that credit will come next life. Based on that I can enjoy. And whatever last life I did good activities, and in this life good activities, the credit we are enjoying, not the activity. Say now I'm if I have a car, or if I have a house, if I have some nice facilities, it's not that because I worked hard in this life I got. These are the credits you have earned. That's why you are enjoying these things, not just the hard work. You need to have that credit to enjoy. Otherwise, people have some things, but they cannot enjoy also, because they don't have. Uh, it is not because they work very hard they got. It is the pious and unpious activities that actually gives your happiness and peace. You may have luxury, but you will never enjoy it if you don't have that punya and papa, the pious credits. That's what people need to acquire. In Vedic culture, people know this. They always worked on acquiring pious credit. No, more you acquire the pious credit, how you get? By giving charity, by rendering some services to the Lord, by following some rules in the house, by worshipping the Lord in the house. All these things, by respecting the elders, getting the blessings of elders. These are the way to gain the pious credits. People respected the elders. As soon as morning you wake up, we see Dishtir Maharaj, it comes in the next few shlokas, is to go and offer respect to all the elderly members of the family. That is how people gain the pious credits. And that's how people made progress. They had a long life to enjoy nicely. Like Markandeya Rishi's story, if you see, Markandeya Rishi's father, he was not having any son in his destiny. But he performed tapasya and then he get blessing. Okay, you'll have a son, but you have two options. You'll have a son who will live long life, but he is very simple, or you'll have a very good son, but he will live for 16 years. He said, okay, I will go for a good son, 16 years. And the son is born, he was so good, so good. And then, but whenever the parents used to see the child, they used to cry. And Markandeya became uh, little grown up. Then he asked the parents, why are you always crying seeing me? Then they say, actually, your lifespan is very short. You live for 16 years. But they say that there is an option. You start respecting everybody. You offer obeisances to all the persons you see, saintly persons. They start doing offering obeisances to all the saintly persons. And one time Saptarishis come. She offer respects to them. They offer nice. Then they say, okay, Ayushman Baba. And then they look at his face, they see he lives only for 1 week is remaining for him. They say, how could we bless him that Ayushman? How can you live for a long life? You are only for 1 week. They are confused. They take him to Brahma. And as soon as they see Brahma, he offers obeisances to Brahma. And Brahma says, okay, Ayushman. This is we also blessed him, but he has only 1 week. Then his life expands and he was given long life so that he can serve, he can render service. That is the purpose. And of course, spiritual purpose. The point what I am telling is how we gain pious act. This is for previous ages or anybody who want to enjoy in this world now also. If they follow certain rules, he respects elders, he takes care of brahmanas, cows, and he's nicely feeding, he's giving charity. If he is doing all these things, definitely you'll get so many pious credits to enjoy in this matter. That's how we gain, not just because I worked very hard and now I had to get into big corporate company, and because I got in a corporate company, I'll get so much money. Because I got money, I'll enjoy. No, you may have big money, you will not enjoy because you don't have credit to enjoy. Credit to enjoy is when you have done pious activities. And you may have so much money, but you have done impious activities, and that money will be cause of so much trouble, so much anxiety, and that will be a great distress. Like say now, for example, there are so many politicians who are very big politicians, and they are in the opposition. They are not ruling government. Now, when the ruling party is doing so many good activities, these people are in so much in trouble because they know next time they cannot win. These people, if they are doing good activities, the government people will elect the same person again. And now the person in opposition, say he is a very rich person, he's very famous person, very powerful person, he has so much money, but every day he's seeing the news that the present government is doing good activity, good activity, good activity. Then for him every day is a nightmare for him. Even though he has everything, he cannot enjoy. This is how it is. If he has done a pious activity, then he will not be envious, his heart is more pure. For him, it does not matter, then he will enjoy. It's like that. It's not because you have money you'll enjoy. It can be a nightmare. And no, then they sit the whole night and they drink, and because to overcome that grief, they drink, they take drugs and sleep. This is generally what happens. Anyway, we will not tell more detail how they suffer and all. Now, here Dhritarashtra is fearful. First thing, if we read, what is the proof if a person lived rightly means at the end of life he is not fearful. If fear is coming to a person, means he did not live a rightful life. That's actually what happens. If a person lives rightful life, he is not afraid of death. He may not be devotee, he is a pious person, he will not be much afraid of. But if he is a sinful life, all everybody is afraid. They may show off that I am not afraid. I have done sinful activities, this, but it is external only. It's not true. Yeah, because the attachments are so strong. And here, that's actually what happened to Dhritarashtra. He did some mistakes, and because of which he still is very fearful. But Vidura says, this frightful situation cannot be reminded by anything or any person, anything in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of God, it has eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. Prabhupada writing, there is no superior power which can check the cruel hands of death. No one wants to die. However acute one's bodily suffering may be. This is the point. He may be suffering so much, but he don't want to die because the attachments are so strong in this metal world. Even in those days of so-called scientific, in these days of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge, there is no remedial measure either for old age or for death. Old age is noticed by the arrival of deaths served by cruel time, and no one can refuse to accept either in the summum calls of the supreme judgment of eternal time. This is explained before Dhritarashtra because he may order Vidura to find out some remedial measure for the imminent fearful situation, as Dhritarashtra has ordered many times before. Before Vidura was so ordered, however, he informed Dhritarashtra that there was no remedial measure by anyone or from any source in this material world. And because there is no such thing in the material world, death is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is said by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita, follows me, Lokakshay. So, Lord, this is very difficult. Even Prabhupada gives example, death cannot be checked by anyone or from any source within this material world. Hiranyakashipu wanted to be immortal and underwent a severe type of penance by which the whole universe trembled, and Brahma himself approached him to rescue Hiranyakashipu from such a severe type of penance. Hiranyakashipu asked Brahma to award him the blessings of immortality, but Brahma said that he himself is subjected to death, even in the topmost planets. So how could he award him the benediction of immortality? So there is death even in the topmost planet of this universe, and what to speak of other planets which are far, far inferior in quality to Brahmaloka, the residing planet of Brahma. Wherever there is influence of eternal time, there is this set of tribulations, namely birth, disease, old age, and death, and all of them are invincible. In the higher planetary system, what happens is the pleasure is so much, and there is some concessions. They may not be very, they may not become old like us. They will not have disease like us because they are just enjoying the credits they have acquired. They are enjoying some pleasures which they have worked very hard to get. And once they are exhausted, then they have to come back to mental world. So that fear will be there for them. Not the fear of old age and disease, but they will have, of course, there are old age disease to some extent, but not like earthly planet. Earth is actually a very good state compared to other planets also. Even lower planets also, higher planets also. In Earth, what happens is everything is very equally balancedly given, the pleasure and pain. That's why it is very easy to practice Krishna consciousness compared to other planets. Because if we get more pleasure, then we'll not be able to focus on Lord. And that is the problem. If we get more pain also, we cannot focus. And then the ability to enjoy is also very limited for us. Say now I want to eat mango. I can eat one, two, three, four. After that, little capacity reduced. If I eat 20 mangoes, then it will be very difficult. My body cannot handle it. It will react in a different way. But in heavenly planet, the senses are so strong, you can enjoy unlimitedly, very great extent. And the duration of life is also very high. The pleasures are very high. How if you go and tell Dukhala Mishashvatam, for them, it becomes very irrelevant. Wait a minute, let me complete my dance with the Apsaras. Then we think about going back from back. For them, it is very difficult. That's why they are trying to take birth in the family of devotees in the earthly planet. But problem what happens is they are born in the devotees family, but the demigod mentality will continue. What is the demigod mentality? The children born in the family of devotees, they have the mentality to control and they have the desire to enjoy. Both the things are there, which are very prominent for demigods. Demigods have very strong desire to enjoy this material world. They are devotees only, but they want to enjoy and they want to control. And we see some devotee children are they are controllers and they are judges. Parents have problems. They say my child is devotee, but He'll, yeah, he's a demigod devotee. That's it. So if they don't attract some, they, if they don't, of course, Krishna sends to purify. So anyway, uh, so we have there are many things you might have heard these things many times. So power is under the influence of supreme Kala. Eternal time must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home. So Prabhupada's purports are very nice. The great Indian scientist, busy in plan making business, was suddenly called by inevitable time while going to attend a very important meeting of the planning commission. And he has to surrender his life, wife, children, house, land, wealth, etc. During the political upsurge in India and its division into Pakistan and Hindustan, so much rich and influential Indians had to surrender life, property, and honor due to the influence of time. And there are hundreds of thousands of examples like that all over the world, all over the universe, which are all effects of the influence of time. So this is very important. See, when the partition happened, what Prabhupada is telling, please try to understand. It is happening because of the influence of time. It is not actually, we should not, uh, this is the main thing that happens. It is not any religious or spiritual activity. Sorry, it is not any religious fight. It is time that fights. Everybody is fighting. Nobody wins. It is not Muslim, Hindu. It is time. Whomever time favors, they will only win. Whomever, and now all these, why such anti-social elements or such type of things are happening in the society is people are doing sinful activities. Their sin is manifested in this form. If there are militants, how these militants are appearing? Militants are the collective karma of the sin that people are doing in that country. The country people are doing some sinful activities, all that collective karma manifests as militants and they will attack the country. That's actually what is happening. Like America, they don't have military, but they have so much violence in the country. People have guns, so much violence, there is so much fear, so much they have to work hard compared to India. They struggle there, even though they have so much pleasure, there is so much struggle also for them because that is their own sinful activities are manifesting. It will manifest as their president of the country, who will be very torturous for them, who will manifest as the uh, all the leaders they are manifesting. So, like now, if people of India they get more money, what they will do? Will they become spiritual? Oh, all the Hindus are there, very nice. They'll go to temple. No, they will all do very nice, simple activities. Like uh, how many Hindus they go every Saturday temple? None of them go. Very few people. Festivals they go here, there they'll go. They are not interested in reading Bhagavad Gita. They say Bhagavad Gita, but none of them read. How many people read Bhagavad Gita? Even if they read, how many people try to understand Bhagavad Gita? And how many people apply Bhagavad Gita? It is not actually possible for any. It is just these people, they are just fighting for these things, but nobody can fight because everything is by time only. Influence of time only this partition happened, even though lakhs of people died, both sides. I think some millions, I think 40 lakh people, very big number died in this riots and all. They say Britishers created it, and then so many Muslims killed Hindus, Hindu killed Muslims, and so many women, children, all these things happened, and very sad situations. And maybe we might have also been in that situation. We are also victims of it, and now we are born again here. We don't know because I remember the name of Lahore from my childhood only. I was thinking, how I know Lahore? I was previously somewhere born there. So uh, because I felt this name very familiar from my childhood. The point is what we may also be the part of that 40 lakh people died in the India-Pakistan partition. But it is not because of Muslim, it is not because of Hindus, it is because of time. Now also what is happening, whatever the movies they take, Kashmir files or Kerala stories or all things, it is not anybody can do anything. It is all time does everything. Yeah, unless time comes, nobody, the time comes in the form of that person who will come and destroy. That's time only comes. If time does not come, no matter you may be living in a environment where it's so hostile, nobody can do anything to you because time is on your side. Time is not favoring you. You may be in a most protective environment like Indira Gandhi. Your own bodyguard will come and kill you. Finish. She kept a bodyguard. Can you imagine? The bodyguard kills you. How much? Oh, that is what his time is. Like we don't have any bodyguards. She has kept a person to protect her, and the person is supposed to protect his killing because time is not in favor. That's all. So therefore, the and same thing. No, for Rajiv Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi attended. He conducted 80 rallies. She 81 rallies. She attended 80 rallies, and 81st rally she didn't come. He died. She's supposed to live to give trouble to others or whatever. So this is the point. Therefore, the conclusion is that there is no powerful living being within the universe who can overcome the influence of time. So many poets have written verses lamenting the influence of time. Many uh, devastations have overtaken the universe due to the influence of time, and no one can check them by any means. Even in our daily lives, so many things can come and go which have no hand, but we have to suffer or tolerate them without remedial measures. This is the result of that. So we should not unnecessarily go into the propaganda that this is happening because of this is happening because of them. We should not go for a blame game. People always blaming. This is because of them. This is because of them. This is because of politicians. Politicians did this. Politicians they cheated us. They did this. No, it is time. For devotees, they should go with Prabhupada's purport. That's why we should read Prabhupada's purport very intensively, so that we understand what exactly is happening. This Prabhupada is clearly telling partition is influence of time. Your father, brother, well wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. Yourself has expanded the major portion of your life. Expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity and you are living in the home of another. The king is reminded of his precarious condition influenced by cruel time, and by his past experience he should have been more intelligent to see what was going to happen to his own life. His father, Vichitrivira, died long back when he and his younger brother were all little children, and it was due to the care and kindness of Bhishmadev that they were properly brought up. Then again his brother Pandu also died. Then in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, his own hundreds, sons and grandsons all died, along with all other well-wishers like Bhishmadev, Dronacharya, Karna, and many other kings and friends. So he had lost all men and money, and now he was living at the mercy of his nephews, whom he had put into troubles of various types. And despite all these reversals, he thought that he would prolong his life more and more. Vidura wanted to point out to Dhritarashtra that everyone has to protect himself by his action and the grace of the Lord. One has to execute his duty faithfully, depending on the results of supreme authority. No friend, no children, no father, no brother, no state, or no one else can protect a person who is not protected by the Supreme Lord. One should therefore seek the protection of Supreme Lord, and the human form of life is meant for seeking the protection. He has warned, he was warned of his precarious condition more and more by the following words. So this is actually the situation. Like now, British Mughals ruled when time did not support, they could not rule anymore. Britishers ruled India, time did not favor, they had to leave. Now somebody else ruled country, different prime ministers. As long as time favors, they will continue to rule the country. Once the favor of the time ends, then they cannot rule anymore. That's all. That is now who will be the next prime minister? Whomever time favors. Very simple. So then he says, Anta Purayodaru Manda Pragnascha Sampratam Vishirna Danto Mandagni Saraga Kapa Udvahan. Says, you have been blinded from your birth and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened and your intelligence disturbed. Your teeth are loosened, your liver is defective, and you are coughing mucus. The symptoms of old age which have already developed in Dhritarashtra, we should not think it will not happen to us. So Prabhupada, when he was old, he was on his when he was in final days, Prabhupada don't think it will not happen to you. So the symptoms of old age which have already developed in Dhritarashtra were all one after another pointed out to him as warning that death was nearing very quickly. And still he was foolishly carefree about his future. So one time one person was taken to Emeraj, and then he complained to Emeraj, Arey, you people, you did not give any warning only. Without warning, you are taking away. It's not fair. You should give warning. Then Emeraj asked, why you did not give any warning? He said, yeah, we gave warning. First, we made his hair grey. Then he applied some hair dye and he made it black. Then we made his eyesight weak. Then he applied his glasses and he continued enjoying in front of TV and mobile. And then we made his ear little deaf. Then he kept some eardrum, some artificial hearing equipment, and he started hearing his film songs or whatever, shouting at others. And then we removed his teeth. Then he applied plastic teeth and he looked at laughing as and he showed his teeth to us. And we brought him here. We gave so many warnings. So here all these warnings are. The signs pointed out by Vidra in the body of Dhritarashtra were signs of apakshaya or dwindling of the material body before the last stroke of death. The body is born, develops, stays, creates other bodies, dwindles, and then vanishes. But foolish men want to make a permanent settlement of the perishable body and think that their estate, children, society, country, etc., will give them protection. With such foolish ideas, they become overtaken by such temporary engagements and forget altogether that they must give up this temporary body and take a new one, again to arrange for another term of society, friendship, and love, again to perish ultimately. They forget their permanent identity and become foolishly active for impermanent occupations, forgetting altogether their prime duty. Saints and sages like Vidra approach such foolish men to awaken them to the real situations, but they take such sadhus and saints as parasites of society, and although all of them refuse to hear the words of such sadhus and saints, although they welcome show bottle sadhus and so-called saints who can satisfy their senses, Vidura was not a sadhu to satisfy the ill-gotten sentiment of the thrush. He was correctly pointing out the real situations of life and how one can save oneself from such catastrophes. This Vidura is not like the so-called Babas who give some temporary solutions. They go and they give their request, these are the problems, please solve. And then the so-called gurus and all, they try to satisfy their followers so that more and more followers come to them. This is all bogus. Also, how powerful are the hopes of living beings to continue in life? Verily, you are living like a household dog and eating remnants of food given by Bhima. Aho mahiyasi jantor jivitasa yata bhavan Bhima tam pindam Adatte Grahapalavat. He's not telling dog, he's telling Grahapalavat. Little more refined way is telling you are a dog. A sadhu should never flatter king or rich man to live comfortably at their cost. A sadhu is to speak to the householders about the naked truth of life so that they may come to their senses about their precarious life in material existence. Dhritarashtra is a typical example of an attached old man in the household life. He had become a pauper in the true sense, yet he wanted to live comfortably in the house of Pandavas, of whom Bhima especially is mentioned because personally he killed two prominent sons of Dhritarashtra, namely Duryodhana and Dushasana. His two sons were very much dear to him for their notorious and nefarious activities, and Bhima is particularly pointed out because he killed his two pet sons. Why was Dhritarashtra living there at the house of Pandavas? Because he wanted to continue his life comfortably, even at the risk of all humiliation. Vidura therefore was astonished how powerful is the urge to continue life. The sense of continuing one's life indicates that the living being is eternally a living entity and does not want to change his bodily habitation. The foolish man does not know that a particular term of bodily existence is awarded to him to undergo a term of imprisonment, and the body is awarded after many, many births and death as a chance for self-realization to go back home, back to body. But persons like Dhritarashtra try to make plan to live there in a comfortable position and with profit and interest, but they do not see things as they are. Dhritarashtra is blinded and continues to hope to live comfortably in the midst of all kinds of reverses of life. Sadhu like Vidra is meant to awaken such blind persons and thus help them go back to Godhead, where life is eternal. Once going there, no one wants to come back to this metal world of miseries. We can just imagine how responsible a task is entrusted to sadhus like Mahatma Vidura. So we'll just complete this one section where Dhritarashtra is almost delivered. There is no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you try to kill by erosion and poison. You also insulted their right and observed their kingdom and wealth. The system of Varnashram religion set aside a part of one's life completely for the purpose of self-realization and attainment of salvation in human form of life. This is the this is a routine division of life, but persons like Dhritarashtra wanted to stay home even at the with their very ripened age and even in the degraded condition of accepting charity from enemies. Vidura wanted to point out this anomaly of his brother, impressed upon him that it was better to die like his son than accept such humiliating charity. Vidura wanted to point out and impressed upon him that it was better to die like his son than accepting humiliating charity. 5,000 years ago, there was one Dhritarashtra, but at the present moment, there are Dhritarashtra in every house. Is that politicians especially do not retire from political activity unless they are dragged by the cruel hands of death or killed by some opposing elements. To stick to family life up to the end of one's human life is the grossest type of degradation. There is an absolute need for Vidras to educate the Dhritarashtra's even at the present moment. Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live, even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment. The word Kripanasya Jivisho are significant. Jivisho. These are the two classes of men. One is called Kripana and the other is called the Brahmana. Kripana or the miserly men had no estimation of their material body, but the estimation of the material. But the Brahmanas have a true estimation of himself and the material body. The Kripana has a wrong estimation of the material body, want to enjoy sense gratification with his utmost strength, and even in the old age, he want to become a young man by medical treatment and or otherwise. Dhritarashtra is addressed herein as Kripana because without an estimation of his material body, he want to live at any cost. Vidura is trying to open his eyes to see that he cannot live more than his term and that he must prepare for death. Such death is inevitable. Why should he accept such a humiliating position for living? It is better to take the right path even at the risk of death. Human life is meant for finishing all kinds of miseries of material existence, and life should be so regulated that one can achieve the desired goal. Dhritarashtra, due to his wrong conception of life, had already spoiled 80% of his achieved energy. So it behooves him to utilize the remaining days of his miserly life for the ultimate good. Such a life is called miserly because one cannot properly utilize the assets of human form of life. Only by good luck does such a miserly man meets a self-realized soul like Vidra and by his instructions get rid of the nuisance of material existence. He who has not properly utilized his mental body is undisturbed if he goes to an unknown place free from all obligations, indifferently quits his body. So here he gives more instructions. Yeah, we will end here. Maybe after tomorrow, on Monday, we'll continue. Almost done. Two more instructions are there. We'll just read them and complete. Yeah, this is about uh, yeah, about Narottama. So we'll do this is a different section only in Malayu because this is instructions, but he's telling about a person who lives. So we'll do it on Monday. And of course, this is a big chapter. It has almost 60 verses. So we are almost reached half. Thank you all very much. Any questions, comments? We'll end here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.